Have you ever sat alone? Not because you have no people around you, but because no one truly understands what is happening inside you. Have you ever felt surrounded and still invisible? If you are alone right now, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, existentially, then this video is not random. It found you. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button and watch this video until the end, because what you are about to hear can quietly change the way you experience loneliness, power, and your own mind. Most men think loneliness is a punishment. Machiavelli saw something far more dangerous. He saw that loneliness is not the enemy. Dependence is. There is a silent difference, and almost nobody teaches you this. You are not suffering because you are alone. You are suffering because you were trained to believe you need emotional permission to exist. Let that sink in. From childhood, you were taught something subtle. Be liked, be approved, be accepted, be validated, be understood. Your nervous system learned a rule. My safety comes from other people's reactions. So when people disappear, when attention fades, when messages stop coming, when invitations dry up, your brain doesn't say, "This is a phase." It says, "I am losing my value." This is not loneliness. This is psychological conditioning. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about human dynamics. The man who cannot emotionally stand alone is never free, and a man who is not free is always manageable, always predictable, always controllable. Not by governments, not by systems, but by approval, by emotional hunger, by attachment, by fear of being forgotten. Here is the uncomfortable part. Most people do not fear being alone. They fear becoming irrelevant. They fear that if nobody is watching, nobody is choosing, nobody is admiring, nobody is responding, then maybe they disappear. But Machiavelli would tell you something that almost sounds cruel. Your invisibility is not your weakness. It is your training ground. Power does not grow in emotional noise. It grows in quiet self-command. Let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you sat alone, without reaching for distraction? No phone, no scrolling, no music, no background noise. Just you, your thoughts, your unresolved emotions, your internal tension, your doubts, your unfinished conversations. Most men cannot tolerate that space. Not because they are weak, but because they were never taught how to be internally governed. So they run into work, into relationships, into entertainment, into online attention, into shallow connection, anything that keeps them from hearing their own psychological instability. Machiavelli knew, a man who cannot sit with his own mind will always look for someone else to regulate it for him. And that is most dangerous form of dependence. This is why your loneliness feels heavy. It is not empty. It is loud. Your mind suddenly has no audience, no performance, no mirror. And that is terrifying for a nervous system trained to exist through reaction. Here is where Machiavelli becomes deeply relevant to your life. Even today, he wrote about rulers, about power, about influence. But his real message was about something far more intimate. Self-possession. The ability to remain psychologically sovereign. When external structure disappears, when people disappear, when praise disappears, when excitement disappears, when comfort disappears, most men collapse in isolation. A few transform. What is the difference? Not talent, not intelligence, not confidence, not looks. Internal discipline, emotional regulation, cognitive clarity. Machiavelli would say, if you cannot command yourself, you will always be commanded by circumstances. And loneliness is the first circumstance that reveals whether you are free or merely busy. Think about this carefully. When you are alone, what rises first? Anxiety, overthinking, self-doubt, regret, comparison, old memories, rejections, unspoken words, missed chances. All of that rushes in because distraction was suppressing it, not healing it. This is why people confuse loneliness with pain. Loneliness does not create suffering. It reveals what you never resolved. Machiavelli never taught emotional comfort. He taught emotional readiness. And that is what modern self-help quietly avoids. You are not meant to feel better. You are meant to become internally unshakable. That is very different. Here is the dangerous illusion you were given. If I find the right person, I will finally feel complete. If I get more friends, I will finally feel stable. If people admire me, I will finally feel enough. Machiavelli would quietly smile at that belief, because he saw this pattern everywhere. The more you need others to stabilize you, the less power you actually have in any relationship. This includes love, friendship, work, family, even social circles. When your emotional center lives outside you, you will always negotiate against yourself. You will tolerate disrespect. You will suppress your boundaries. You will over-explain. You will chase clarity. You will chase reassurance. You will chase attention. Not because you are weak, because your nervous system is outsourcing its safety. If you are alone right now, this is not abandonment. This is your nervous system being given back to you for the first time, and that is why it feels uncomfortable. Machiavelli observed something few people admit. People respect emotional self-containment, even if they cannot explain why. A man who does not collapse when ignored is subconsciously registered as psychologically dangerous. Not violent, not aggressive, but ungovernable. And ungovernable men are always quietly respected, even by those who do not like them. Look at your past. How many times did you emotionally leak your need? Through over-texting, through over-explaining, through emotional availability without boundaries, through immediate responsiveness, through emotional transparency before emotional stability. You thought vulnerability would build attraction. You were taught that. But Machiavelli would warn you, exposure without self-mastery invites loss of leverage, not because people are evil, but because emotional gravity shifts toward the person who is not internally destabilized by uncertainty. This is especially important for you, Sonu, because your channel is built around psychological depth and stoic discipline. Your viewers are not looking for flirting tricks. They are looking for emotional structure, for internal grounding, for something deeper than surface confidence. This is where loneliness becomes one of the most powerful psychological tools you will ever experience. Let me show you the real function of solitude. Solitude is not isolation. Solitude is rehearsal for emotional sovereignty. When you are alone, no one validates you. No one corrects you. No one reassures you. No one confirms your self-image. This forces your brain to create something it normally avoids. Internal authority. You stop asking, how am I being perceived? And you slowly start asking, what do I actually stand on? What do I tolerate? What do I refuse? What do I pursue? What do I delay? What do I protect? This is identity formation, not social identity. Personal identity. Machiavelli believed that fortune favors the prepared mind. But preparation is not technical. It is emotional, psychological, strategic. A man who collapses emotionally under uncertainty is never prepared for opportunity. Because opportunity almost always arrives in unstable conditions, unclear conditions, uncertain timing, incomplete information, no reassurance, no guarantees, just decision pressure. Loneliness trains exactly that. Here is something very important. Most men use loneliness to spiral. A few men use loneliness to sharpen. Same environment, different internal discipline. One group scrolls, the other reflects. One group numbs, the other structures. One group escapes, the other trains emotional stillness. Machiavelli would never tell you to enjoy loneliness. He would tell you to use it. Let's be honest. Right now, you probably miss someone, a woman, a friend, a version of your life, an old identity, an old routine, an old future you imagined, and you tell yourself you are lonely because that person is gone. But the deeper truth is more painful. That person gave your mind structure. They gave your day rhythm. They gave your identity emotional reference. They gave your nervous system familiarity. Now that structure is gone, so your mind panics, not because of love, but because of disorientation. This is why breakups feel like identity collapse. This is why social isolation feels destabilizing. This is why men often spiral after emotional separation, not because they lost someone, but because they never built internal order. Machiavelli would tell you, never build your psychological architecture on external presence, because presence is temporary, always. Here is the shift you must make. Stop asking, how do I stop feeling alone? Start asking, how do I become emotionally self-sufficient? Not cold, not detached, not unfeeling, but self-regulated, grounded, stable, unreactive. Your loneliness is not telling you that you are unloved. It is telling you that your emotional center was living outside you, and now it must be rebuilt inside. The strongest men in history were not socially isolated. They were internally independent, and there is a difference. They could enjoy connection without needing it to function. They could walk away without emotional collapse. They could delay gratification. They could tolerate silence. They could tolerate ambiguity. They could tolerate being misunderstood. That is psychological armor. Let me ask you one difficult question. If everyone disappeared from your life for the next 6 months, would your internal structure survive? Or would your motivation collapse? Would your self-respect remain stable? Would your discipline hold? Would your direction remain clear? This is the real test. Not popularity. Not dating success. Not followers. Not social validation. Internal continuity. Machiavelli would say, a man who only functions when observed is not powerful. He is performative, and performance always collapses when the audience leaves. This is why loneliness feels like failure. You were taught to perform your worth, not to build it. And here is where everything starts to change for you. Loneliness is the only environment where your mind stops negotiating with external feedback. No praise, no correction, no reassurance, no emotional mirrors. So you finally begin to hear your own cognitive noise, your self-deception, your emotional avoidance, your excuses, your unresolved fears, your delayed decisions, your passive ambitions. This is not comfortable, but it is accurate. Most men avoid accuracy. They prefer comfort. Because accuracy is confronting. It removes excuses. It exposes emotional laziness. It forces responsibility. Comfort allows you to keep your old story. Accuracy forces you to face the real one. And this is exactly where Niccolò Machiavelli separates himself from almost every modern motivational voice. Machiavelli understood that the human mind will always try to protect itself. First, not by becoming stronger, but by becoming softer toward its own weaknesses. So instead of asking, what is actually happening here? Most men ask a safer question. How can I feel better about what's happening? That is comfort. Comfort edits reality so you can survive it emotionally. Accuracy shows reality so you can dominate it strategically. Comfort says, I tried my best. Accuracy asks, did I really? Comfort says, it wasn't the right time. Accuracy asks, or did I avoid discomfort? Comfort says, they didn't understand me. Accuracy asks, or did I fail to lead the situation? Comfort protects your identity. Accuracy upgrades it. Machiavelli preferred clarity, because clarity is ruthless to illusion. Clarity does not care how hard your past was. Clarity does not negotiate with your emotional story. Clarity only asks one brutal question. What actually works in the real world of human behavior? Not what should work. Not what feels morally comforting. Not what sounds attractive. What works? And this is why clarity becomes power. Because when you see people clearly, you stop taking things personally. When you see yourself clearly, you stop lying to yourself. When you see your patterns clearly, you stop being surprised by your outcomes. Clarity removes emotional fog. And emotional fog is what keeps men stuck in repeating the same mistakes while believing they are growing. Most men choose comfort because comfort allows delay. Delay of discipline. Delay of difficult conversations. Delay of uncomfortable self-correction. But clarity compresses time. It shows you immediately where you are weak, where you are undisciplined, where you are emotionally reactive, where you are strategically naive. That is why clarity feels dangerous, not because it hurts, but because it makes self-deception impossible. Machiavelli knew something that very few people are willing to accept. You cannot gain control over your life while clinging to comforting lies about who you are. Most people live inside illusions, little stories they tell themselves to feel safe. I'm talented, I'm strong, I can handle this, even when the truth screams otherwise. These lies feel warm and reassuring, but they are chains. He chose a different path. He chose clarity over comfort, truth over emotional safety, precision over approval, because he understood a brutal fact. Life does not reward the stories we tell ourselves. It rewards the reality we engage with, and that is why clarity becomes power, not arrogance, not cunning, power. Real power comes from seeing things exactly as they are, even when it hurts, even when it cuts deep. The man who can see reality without flinching, can move inside reality without hesitation. He is untouchable by illusions, unaffected by the lies others tell themselves or try to sell him. He does not stumble over wishful thinking. He does not freeze at emotional comfort. He acts decisively because he knows where the line is, where the danger lies and where the opportunity waits. Think about it. In London, a man who understands the real political games behind a boardroom decision can maneuver his career faster than anyone who believes the flattering words of colleagues. In New York, a man who sees the raw truth of a relationship and, without excuses, without sugarcoating, can step forward with confidence or step away without regret. Clarity strips away illusions, strips away excuses, and leaves only the path that leads to real power. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. And that is exactly why so few achieve it. So ask yourself, are you choosing reassurance over truth? Comfort over clarity? Are you clinging to the lies you tell yourself just to feel safe? Even when those lies are quietly holding you back from everything you could become? Because the moment you choose reality, the moment you face the unvarnished truth about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your failures, and your fears, and something shifts. You step into a realm where hesitation dissolves, where fear no longer whispers in your ear, trying to manipulate your decisions, where the illusions that once controlled your choices crumble, and you finally move with certainty. In that moment, life stops testing you with distractions and false comforts. It begins responding to your clarity, to your courage, to your unwillingness to settle for comforting lies. Every step you take becomes deliberate. Every decision becomes sharp. You are no longer a passenger in your own story. You are the one steering the course. Because truth is not cruel. Truth is freeing, and clarity is not cold. Clarity is power, the power to act without hesitation, the power to see what others refuse to see, the power to live a life that responds to your will, rather than to the fantasies you've been hiding behind. So step forward. Look yourself in the mirror without flinching. Accept the truth, harsh, raw, unrelenting, and watch as the hesitation fades. Watch as fear loosens its grip. Watch as life finally bends to the decisions of a man who refuses to lie to himself. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.